Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, comrades, friends. Welcome to the memorial service of Isitwalandwe Siaparonkwe, Comrade John Nkadimeng. Welcome to the Nkadimeng family, Mama Evelyn, the children, grandchildren, and the entire Nkadimeng clan, leadership of the Alliance, veterans, excellencies, provinces and regions, the leagues, and all watching on social media platforms tonight. I will be co-directing proceedings of the memorial service with Comrade Louisa Tipe, the second Vice President of COSATU, and with Comrade Joyce Moloi Maropa, National Treasurer of the South African Communist Party. We will start our proceedings with a prayer, followed by a slide presentation on the life of Comrade John Nkadimeng. Comrade, I'm now calling on Pastor Deacon Ntate to please open with a prayer.
So it's opening. So, thank you very much, Master of Ceremonies. This is a wonderful day where we celebrate the life of our father. This is Twalande, Comrade John Nkadimeng. Comrade John Nkadimeng is known mostly to members of the African National Congress, SJK. He has been a very high-profile member of the organization for many years, since in the 50s. And I really like to express my gratitude to be here and say a prayer on behalf of the family and bless this ceremony. But first of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to bring greetings and recognition to program directors, Comrade Jesse Duarte of the ANC, Comrade Louisa of COSATU, and Comrade Joyce Moropa of the South African Communist Party. I also like to acknowledge the branch secretary, Comrade Faith Silolo, and all members of the branch. I also like to take this opportunity to recognize leaders of the African National Youth Congress. I'd like to recognize Comrade Dr. Snuki Zigalala of the ANC Veterans League, Comrade Batabile Dlamini, the President of the Women's League of the African National Congress, former commanders of the People's Army and the commissars. I greet you all in Jesus' mighty name. All protocol observed. We meet today in this very august occasion to come and share a very important message amongst ourselves about one man who's a giant, who's a glorious fighter, a man who has been involved in the struggle since he was a young man. He started as a trade unionist. He ended up being a great-grandfather, a father to a family, a father to the nation, but also a father to most of us in Nkundwe as commanders and commissars, but also very key in the African National Congress during the early times, during the Rivonia trial. He was there. He was also a member of the Rivonia trial. I remember when I was on my way traveling to Robben Island as a prisoner, I saw the name of J.K. Nkadimeng at Stoffberg in the Free State. And I was amazed because when I went to exile, I then raised this matter and asked him, why was your name written on the walls of a prison in Stoffberg in the Northern Cape? So he explained to me exactly what happened. He was a prisoner for 3 years, and most of us, we didn't know that he was really a member of the high command of Nkundwe Sizwe. He was part of the Rivonia trial. But having said all that, we are meeting at a time when now we're celebrating his life because he's a majestic giant, a man who stood up when the people of South Africa were oppressed by the draconian system of apartheid. He took up arms against the system of apartheid. And today, as we sit and talk about him, we recognize the fact that our nation is caught up in a situation whereby we're all talking about COVID-19. We're living in a far more unequal society in South Africa. Our people are living in a state of fear. There's a lot of uncertainty and sickness amongst our people. But I just want to mention the fact that there is a Jesus, there is a God who is out there making sure that we are covered and protected by his glory. Hallelujah. Now, Jesus Christ was sent by God to come to this world to take away our sins and give his sinful life to the cross so that we may be able to have a sustainable life which is sinless. But I just want to take this opportunity as I say that for the few who might know not, I'm a son in this family. I'm a child of Ntate, John, and Evelyn Nkadimeng. To my special mom, I just want to say that Psalms 30 verse 2 says, "Oh Lord, my God, I called to you for help and you healed me." God is our refuge and our strength, a very present help in trouble. Mama, I say in this time of trouble, look upon the Lord because he's the only one who will give you an opportunity to find joy in your heart. Right now, you are overloaded with a whole lot of.
Asiwafuna makwala, asiwafuna mavela shona, asifuni midwembe, sifuna makabane katambo, asiwafuna makwala, asiwafuna mavela shona. Asiwafuna makwala, asiwafuna mavela shona, asifuni midwembe, sifuna makabane gachostofu, asiwafuna makwala, asiwafuna mavela shona, asifuni midwembe.
Good evening one more time and welcome to the memorial service of Isitwalandwe Siaparonkwe, Comrade John Nkadimeng. I am co-directing with and Comrade Louisa Tipe, the second Vice President of COSATU. My name is Jessie Duarte. I'm the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC. We are gathered here today to celebrate the life of a great revolutionary, trade unionist, an organizer, a volunteer, a peacemaker, a diplomat, a leader, a rural organizer, and a communist. He has been described as diligent, calm, disciplined, charming. The list goes on and on. His passing comes at a time when our people and country face many unprecedented challenges, the COVID-19 pandemic and its social and economic impact, as well as the scourge of gender-based violence and corruption. As we reflect on the life of Ntate Nkadimeng today, we hope to draw inspiration from his life and the lessons he taught us during over 70 years of activism. Our program starts with messages from Ntate Nkadimeng's branch, the Onika Mashego branch in Gauteng, delivered by its secretary, Comrade Frith Selolo. The branch will be followed by messages from the ANC Youth League, delivered by Comrade Nkadimeng, followed by Dr. Snooki Zikalala of the Veterans League president, and immediately thereafter, Comrade Batabile Dlamini, the president of the Women's League. Comrades, you each have 3 minutes to give your messages. Thank you very much. Comrade Frith, you are up. Selolo, please take the podium. Frith is not with us yet. We'll come back to him later. Could I please ask Comrade Nkadimeng if he could please, from the ANC Youth League, deliver a 3-minute message. Comrade Mukhali.
Thank you very much, Comrade Chair of the session, our Deputy Secretary General of the ANC. On behalf of the ANC Youth League, am I audible, comrades? I'm not sure. On behalf of the ANC Youth League, Comrade Jesse, allow us to send our revolution to the family of our stalwart, towering struggle icon, Sitalandwe Siabarangwe, a treason trialist and a servant of the people to the end. Let me also extend greetings to the ANC national leadership represented by you, Comrade Jesse, the alliance that is here, President of the ANC Women's, Comrade Bata, the ambassador of Cuba, when Ntate Nkadimeng spent most of his post-democracy years serving as an ambassador, Buenas tardes. As the ANC Youth League, we are honored to come and deposit our message of condolences to this great man. Those who knew Ntate Nkadimeng call him a round activist who executed his revolutionary task of the international solidarity work. And it is pleasing to us as the ANC Youth League that in this month of August, we've received the news that a Black African-American female in the form of Kamala Harris will make history as the first Black woman to run for deputy presidency in the United States of America. President Nelson Mandela, during the occasion of the burial of Comrade Harry Gwala, said the following words, and I will quote, "In history, each individual makes his or her unique contribution, but that contribution is reshaped by the input of others to become unrecognizable on its own. Yet some contributions stand out as monuments precisely because the individuals responsible do not fear to differ. They do not wield the slightest side of divergence," unquote. And we believe that Ntate Nkadimeng belonged into the history of such individuals. We've listened in awe when comrades, his own comrades that he has served with, those that looked up to him, his mentees, spoke at length about this towering figure. And one thing that stood out about Ntate Nkadimeng is that he was never one to shy away from robust discussions and disagreements. And this was evident in the birth of the Congress of South African Trade Unions in 1985. As we celebrate this life well-lived, Comrade Chair of the session, the ANC Youth League realizes that we have bigger shoes to fill, and that in our lowest moments in the history, during the most difficult times that the ANC Youth League finds itself in, the demise of such greatness is a painful reminder that we have not achieved our very own generational task and mission. Unlike Ntate Nkadimeng and his peers, who carefully took in younger recruits, mobilized for their education across the globe, and selflessly guided the organization, our ANC Youth League has not much to celebrate. We say to the family of Ntate Nkadimeng that his legacy will not be in vain. The ANC Youth League sees the demise of Ntate Nkadimeng as an opportunity to self-reflect. We're seeing this as an opportunity for us to pause, ponder, and reflect of the life that was well lived, and what is it that the ANC Youth League can learn and extract from such a well of knowledge. Acknowledge the fact that in our pursuance and in our pursuit to our generational mission of economic empowerment in our lifetime, we've not had it easy, Comrade Chair of the session, but because of the strides and difficulties and the unfavorable conditions that Comrade Nkadimeng served this organization diligently during the most difficult of times, but still carried on, we believe as the ANC Youth League, our very own mission will be realized. Comrade John Nkadimeng loved this organization, and this was evident in how he and his peers took in recruits and ultimately fought for the liberation of this country. He led the defiance campaign when it was not favorable to, and he stuck to his words and made a promise that South Africa will be liberated. We say Comrade Nkadimeng loved the ANC and this organization because we want to use this opportunity to make a plea to those that are currently leading us, those whose opportunities were created by Comrade Nkadimeng and his peers to come in and lead when their times allowed, to say, we are pleading with you, leaders of the ANC, if you truly love this organization, the way you claim to love it, the way Comrade Nkadimeng and his peers loved the organization, allow and create a healthy environment that will birth young revolutionaries who will take this organization to greater heights. We believe that those who truly love this organization will work towards preparing young militant leaders to take over the ANC, but will not do for wrongdoings within the ANC. One of the speakers in the last provincial memorials of Comrade Nkadimeng spoke painfully about the messages that Comrade Nkadimeng must give to those that he will find in the hereafter. That he must tell them that the ANC is bleeding internally. It is not bleeding because of any other thing, but the fact that as leaders, whether we're young or whether we're old, we've relegated our duties and responsibilities to create a healthy
Mokhali, for a very inspiring tribute to Comrade Nkadimeng, very clearly an inspiration also to you in times of struggling to get the Youth League back on its feet, and a clear analysis of what country work for all of us. I would like to call on Comrade Frith Selolo to please take the podium, but please remember that you only have
Good afternoon, Program Director. The National Chairperson, Comrade Gwere Mantashe, Deputy Secretary General, Comrade Jesse Duarte, members of the NEC present, leadership of Alliance, leadership of the Women's League, the veterans, PYA, branches of the ANC, Nkadimeng family and relatives, friends and comrades. Matsidiso go ba lelapa le meloko ya Ntate Nkadimeng and the entire movement. Re leboge lelapa la Ntate Nkadimeng go mo tlhokomela go fitlha his last days. ANC Onika Mashego branch mourns the passing of our struggle veteran, a stalwart, Siaparangwe Ntate John Nkadimeng. Ntate Nkadimeng was not just a leader, but a father figure to all of us. He belongs to the special generation of selfless leaders that sacrificed their lives and freedom to fight the brutal system of apartheid for the total liberation of our people and emancipation of the working class and the poor. We thank the family for lending and sharing him with us, a life well lived and deserved to be celebrated. Ntate Nkadimeng was an all-rounder, a true revolutionary, an internationalist, an organizer, a trade unionist, an activist, and a freedom fighter. Our stalwart is no more, and it will be befitting to remember him and celebrate his life as part of those groundbreaking group of trade unionists that managed to popularize the cause of trade union at the time of the great hostility from both employers and the apartheid regime. Ntate Nkadimeng was a pioneer trade unionist who contributed immensely to building the trade union movement in shaping the South African democracy dispensation. In his early years, our stalwarts understood that without unions, workers would lose much protection against the abusive employers. That's why he was elected as a shop steward with the African Tobacco Workers Union in 1947. He grew to become a general secretary of the underground South African Congress of Trade Union, a position that paves to the formation of COSATU. A member of South African Communist Party Central Party in a committee in exile, an NEC member, a member in good standing of ANC Onika Mashego branch in Johannesburg region. As young activists of the ANC, we have always interacted with Ntate Nkadimeng on a number of occasions where he shares his life experience. And I must say that at all times, the family gave us an access to Ntate Nkadimeng even when he was at his advanced age, and he will always be happy to be with us. As a branch, we have made it our foremost task to organize and celebrate his birthdays with the family and other senior leaders of the organization. This gave us an opportunity to spend more time, and he used this opportunity to share the old story of how they used to organize during those times when they were banned. We used some of these tactics to penetrate the ward during the 2011 local election, and we actually win the ward. Unfortunately, we lost the ward again in 2016 during the local election. I would like to challenge my fellow branch members that since we'll be going to the next local elections, we need to work hard and win back the ward in honor of Ntate Nkadimeng. Program Director, it is important to mention that just few kilometers from his house, there is an ANC branch named after him in Ward 73, Houghton in Johannesburg. Ntate Nkadimeng was adored for all the qualities associated with the glorious generation of leaders with moral integrity, courage, wisdom, self-sacrifice, honesty, dignity, and sheer decency. Ntate Nkadimeng was a true struggle activist who epitomized the very soul and essence of what it means to be a servant of the people. He was in the struggle not for self-interest, not for the material gain or acknowledgement, but to rid of our country of the plight of apartheid. We will remember, Ntate Nkadimeng, that you always, first and foremost, being the leader of the people's movement, you never lost sight of your role as the leader and the servant of the liberation movement through your commitment, dedication, humility, selflessness, your loyalty, and discipline. That to be a true leader is to be the servant of your people. For this, we salute you. Now that you are no longer with us in person, but your example shines more brightly than ever and will continue to inspire and guide us for as long as we live. The best way to honor this gallant fighter is to take forward the struggle that he led. As a branch, we will protect and guide the precious legacy by fighting rampant corruption that is eating the moral fiber of our organization. We need to defend the unity and the integrity of the glorious movement. We must be committed disciples of change, reconnect with the people, and pursue the ANC popular objective like the true revolutionary who seeks only to serve the nation. Please convey our regards to all our...
Giving us a very good perspective on a wonderful veteran of our struggle, humility, selflessness, service to the people, loyalty, and above all, his presence on a daily basis, never leaving the organization, always present, always part of it. It is now my honor to call Dr. Snooky Zikalala, the president of the Veterans League, to give his message to the family and to all of us in this memorial service.
Thank you very much, Comrade Director, Comrade Jesse Duarte, family of Ntate Nkadimeng, dear comrades. The ANC Veterans League mourns the death of Ntate Nkadimeng. It was with shock and disbelief when I got a call from Ntate Nkadimeng's daughter, Gloria Nkadimeng, that the ANC's Tolandwe, Siaparankwe, Ntate Nkadimeng is no more. It was on the 13th of June, 2020, when we visited and celebrated Ntate Nkadimeng's 93rd birthday under the lockdown conditions at his home. Little did we know that it will be our last time to see him alive, though frail and not in good condition. We'd like to thank the family for allowing us as a Veterans League to have been with him when he was celebrating his last birthday at home. Ntate Nkadimeng, as your soul rests in peace and the sound of your voice is no more, we are particularly proud to have walked this long and arduous freedom path with you. We make bold to say you were a true leader and one of the illustrious men and women who selflessly dedicated their lives to the cause of freedom. You spent your entire life in the African National Congress, the South African Congress of Trade Unions, and the South African Communist Party, and in the struggle for the liberation of the South African society. You played a critical role in mobilizing the international trade union movement in the fight against apartheid and the racist regime. Your selflessness, hard work, humility, and attributes of honesty and integrity convinced society to give us an overwhelming majority during our first democratic elections. Ntate Nkadimeng, you depart from this earth when our movement's credibility has been compromised by unscrupulous elements who raided the COVID-19 coffers. We are being battered, humiliated, lampooned, and ridiculed for not taking action against those who have been found wanting. We won the last elections on an anti-corruption campaign and promised society that will deal harshly with individuals who have been involved in acts of malfeasance. There is palpable anger from society against our movement, as it is perceived not to have lived up to the society's expectations when dealing with corrupt individuals. The Veterans League will acknowledge as the Veterans League, we acknowledge the government's ministerial task team that will tackle COVID-19 corruption. However, our people are tired of commissions and task teams. They need to see the tigers and flies being incarcerated for corruption. Visible and firm action against those found wanting and clean governance will certainly bring back society's confidence in our glorious movement. Ntate Nkadimeng will not let you down. We'll ensure that our movement implement the Nasrec resolution that demands that those implicated in corrupt activities should step aside and clear their names. Stepping aside is not an admission of guilt. We will help to strengthen the Integrity Commission and ensure that it is well-resourced and deals firmly with individuals who compromise the integrity and dignity of our glorious movement. A moral high ground is what has sustained our movement for decades. We will unite and renew and build strong structures of the Veterans League and of the ANC. Veterans League's officials will drive the anti-corruption campaigns at our branches, districts, region, and provinces. Ntate Nkadimeng, as the Veterans League, will not preside over the death of our glorious movement because of corruption. In your name and honor, we will be firm but just and demand high ethical standards from our leadership. The ANC belongs to society, and we are just stewards and must serve society with humility, integrity, and respect. Nalangoxolo Ntate Nkadimeng, re bala ka kgotso Ntate Nkadimeng. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Snooky Zikalala. Comrade Nkadimeng's dedication to the working class was unsurpassed, and that he did believe in action and not words. And we ourselves need to believe that the only way we can correct what is wrong in our society and in our community is to live by the values of the ANC like he did. It is now an honor for me to call the President of Batabile Dlamini.
Thank you very much, Comrade Jesse, Comrade Louisa Tipe, and Joyce Moruba, as well as the leadership of the party, COSATU, Comrade Kwede, and members of the NEC of the ANC and the Youth League. The ANC Women's League would like to pass to the family of Baba Nkadimeng, more particularly Mama Nkadimeng. Baba Nkadimeng was one of the finest comrades the ANC had. He was a true revolutionary and a selfless servant of the people, and he was very, very peaceful. He was from the generation that was selfless and committed to the liberation of the poor and the working class. Baba Nkadimeng was an outstanding leader from humble beginnings. He was very dynamic and became an active leader of the trade union movement, the African National Congress, and the Communist Party. He grew up organically within the trade union movement, and because he had respect for women in the trade union movement, he worked with them in the garment trade union. We were told by Mepetha Kowa and Sophie Brain, Merita Nzanga, that they worked together in the Textile Workers Union. This is where women were active in the Defiance Campaign, the treason trial, and in the collection of the people's demand that are encapsulated in the Freedom Charter. As women, we have every reason to celebrate the life of Ntate Nkadimeng. We also have to follow in the footsteps of women of the caliber of Mama Mtswaledi, who was very key in the formation of Sakau as well as FAU. During the formation of COSATU in Carisfontein, the late president of COSATU, Comrade Elijah Bahai, was very clear in the demand for equal pay and equal jobs. These are leaders that were all rounders and who believed in women and who ensured that they fought for issues of violence against women. And that is why they were able to get society. And if you want not pay lip service to the struggle for the emancipation of women. Thank you very much, Comrade Jesse.
Eastern Cape. He will be followed by Comrade Makulu Lidwaba, a former trade unionist who was part of the engagement with SACTU and Ntate Nkadimeng towards the formation of COSATU in 1985. Comrade Ronnie Casras, that you all know, a former MK and NEC member, Shakudi from Sikukuni, who will talk about of our movement, Comrade Josiah Jele, who will have an illustrious history of struggle and sacrifice, will read as well. We will start with Comrade Alva McKay talking to us from Nelson Mandela Bay in Eastern Cape. I need to emphasize and thank all the comrades who have joined us in on this important evening, but also emphasize that we do have to stick to time, and I would request the comrades that are coming to stick to, at least speaking, for not more than 6 minutes. Over to you, Comrade Alva McKay.
Thanks very much. Good afternoon, Program Director. All protocol observed in order to make sure I do only the 6 minutes. I bring condolences to Mam Nkadimeng, Modise, Vera, David, Gloria, Shirley, Calvin, and the entire family of the late Comrade Ntate Nkadimeng, or Comrade JK, as we used to call him. Comrade JK was a kind man. He was warm and jovial. He loved a good laugh and he loved a joke. But he could also be very stern and strict. He was a father to us, we who were then the younger ones in the South African Congress of Trade Unions. And we thank the family for sharing your father with us for so many years, to the extent that our comrades at SACTU, such as Poppy Nokwe and Yvonne, used to call him Daddy. Today we mourn your loss because we also shared in the joy of his life with you. SACTU was our home away from home. We were one family in Lusaka, Zambia, as well as in other frontline states, where we were taken care of by SACTU and by the ANC. All of this under the leadership of Comrade JK. Things may not have always been easy for everyone, but as younger comrades, we were privileged to work with and learn from giants of our trade union movement, including Comrade JK, who was one of the founding members of SACTU in March 1955. We also had Baba Moses Mabida, Ray Simons, Archie Sibeko, Mark Shope, Kane Munsami, John Mutsabi, Aaron Pemba, known as Bibi, Stephen Lamini, Gazi, Tobile Mhlaflo, and Martin Sele. I think it's important for us to say their names so that we remind ourselves of the sacrifices that were made for the freedom that we enjoy today. SACTU was a fully fledged entity that worked within Zambia, but it also had a number of units, the SACTU Information and Publicity Unit, responsible for publishing Workers' Unity. We had Radio Freedom, Workers' Front Program, which were beamed into South Africa from Zambia, from Angola, Tanzania, and Madagascar. SACTU also had workers' programs, There was also the education unit, which was dealing with trade union education and training aimed specifically at unions inside the country. We had an internal unit, which was responsible for internal operatives and structures, and not to forget the Treasury comrades. Through its international unit, SACTU was in the forefront of building international working class solidarity, in particular with the ILO, Organization of African Trade Unions, the socialist countries, Nordic countries, Europe, and in fact, the entire world. Without exception, workers of the world supported our struggle against the obnoxious apartheid regime. And SACTU also had offices which were in the UK, in Denmark, Canada, at the World Federation of Trade Unions in Prague, Czechoslovakia. And Comrade John and his collective were responsible for all of this. Comrade John was multifaceted and wore many caps, as we refer to them in those days. He was the embodiment of the Tripartite Alliance as the General Secretary of the South African Congress of Trade Unions, also the Central Committee of the South African Communist Party. And then within the ANC, he also held a number of positions. And we always joked with Comrade JK that he had his 3 caps, and which cap are you wearing today? Because he had the responsibilities of all these sections within the organization. But I also remember one of the sadder moments in Comrade JK's life, when his beloved son Vernon, also known as Rogers, was brutally killed in a car accident, in a car bomb, by the apartheid security forces in Botswana. Comrade JK was devastated, he was sad, and you saw it in his face and all his emotions. And he had to bear the pain on behalf of his family and the movement when Rogers was killed in that car bomb at the age of 27. Comrade JK was the leader of SACTU Collective during the 80s when he led the underground work of SACTU towards the formation of a single non-racial trade union federation, which was based on the principles of industrial unions. The slogan was one country, one federation, one industry, one union. And throughout the 80s, it was the task of SACTU to guide its internal operatives in the prolonged and protracted unity talks. These formally started in Langa in Cape Town in 1981 with 29 unions present. There was one focus, and that was to forge the greatest level of unity within the diverse trade union movement towards a single trade union federation. This was a dynamic time, and there were intense debates about unity, about principles and conditions for unity. Unions walked out of the talks and they walked back into the talks, and there were numerous attempts to derail the unity talks. But SACTU continued to preach the principles of unity, and the final outcome was that after more than 4 years of hard work, the Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU, was born on 1 December 1985 in Durban. For us, that was a very great moment as SACTU. The baby was not delivered by a...
McKay, you are actually going frozen, and can I request that we take other speakers due to time? We will be proceeding, comrades. Thank you so much to Comrade McKay for the role outlined from SACTU and Lusaka office. I will continue and request Comrade Makuli Lidwaba to give us the role information of COSATU. Comrade Lidwaba, please take the podium.
Okay. Good afternoon, Program Director, the Nkadimeng family. Mine is just a brief input, just to give a perspective of the role that Ntate Nkadimeng played, some of which Comrade Ilva has alluded to. But the most critical is just to emphasize how intense the hostilities were.
And the call for the unity. I don't know how she can stop.
The call for unity was a sustained effort at Nkadimeng in the leadership of SACTU. As you were already made aware, SACTU had a very large footprint outside of South Africa, but it had a very strong presence in the Eastern Cape, where it commanded a lot of influence. Okay. where it commanded a lot of influence from SAU, the South African and Allied Workers Union, one of the most militant and assertive general union, was literally the backbone of SACTU's presence in South Africa. There were then other trade unions that grew out of that in Johannesburg and other parts of the country, which were under the direct influence of SACTU. During the 1981 up to 1985 unity talks, very intense and critical debates took place, some of which were underpinned by a desire to have an understanding of where the political dynamic should flow, in which direction it should flow, and how must it flow in any of the directions so chosen. It so happened that as these discussions become intense, very heated, various slogans, or maybe not slogans as such, but naming each other, at times even in derogatory terms. They were what you call the Trotskyites, Workerists, and the populists. When all of that was happening, there was a clear and well-considered effort on the SACTU leadership to allow a more comprehensive and sustained interaction, because leaders of organized labor and direct contact with SACTU. When that happened, unionists from all backgrounds, whether you call them Trotskyite unions, whether you call them the UDF unions or independent unions, were able to go out of the country to meet with leaders of SACTU to have an interaction. At first, there was this great level of suspicion, because in the first instance, SACTU, other people say it was hostile, but SACTU was not very much in favor of the formation of COSATU whilst it still existed as an external mission. And the reason for that was that the political climate and the control on influence of political thought processes has not yet been delivered right into the center of SACTU, the ANC, and the SACP. Through continuous interaction, SACTU would make sure that trade unionists from inside the country are invited either by SADC, OATU, and all other friendly international centers globally. And when that happens, SACTU would always make sure that its functionaries are on the ground, ready to receive and engage with South African trade unions. We're talking of people like Mark Sweet, Ntate Diseko, Tozamile Bota, Tozamile Makete, just to name a few. Those were boots on the ground that had time to interact with the internal leadership of the democratic trade union movement. Fast forward, when the unity talks reached a critical stage, that was around June of 1985 at Ipelageng, we had come to a decision that there is no way we are going to retreat or pull back. We are advancing towards the creation of COSATU. And when that happened, there were a number of unions that walked out. There were unions from NAPTU or from KUSA. There were what was regarded as the four small UDF unions. When that meeting concluded, another meeting took place at around 9 or 10 at night. In that meeting, we then concluded differently, that there is no way that we are going to leave, however small that these unions are. There is no way that we are going to leave this union isolated and marginalized. Our intention, the collective effort, has to be one that says every single union that upholds these critical principles must be brought in and be an integral part in the march towards the formation of COSATU. Indeed, in those intervening periods, unionists were continuously being called to Zambia, to Zimbabwe,
And some of our comrades.
Thank you very much, Comrade Lidwaba. Due to time, we'll have to move to the next speaker, Comrade Ronnie Castle, another leader as well, will be talking to us about the PMC and the underground. Comrade Ronnie.
Very much, Comrade Program Director. My salutations to the leadership and all protocols observed, as Comrade Ilva has mentioned. Deepest condolences to Mama and Nkadimeng and to the beautiful children, grandchildren and great-grandchildren, lovely Nkadimeng family. Our heartfelt condolences. We are very sad at this parting of a most wonderful human being. Comrade Jesse Duarte had mentioned his humility. And of course, there's so many qualities that Comrade Nkadimeng possessed. That humility, that modesty was absolutely unsurpassable. And how many of us recollect that, yes, a leader who was given the highest awards our country and the ANC can give, was so humble that people forget that at the Kabwe conference in Zambia in 1985, to remind comrades, Comrade John Nkadimeng topped the polls after the top posts of President, Secretary General, Treasurer had been filled. And that was topping the polls over the likes of Joe Slovo, Chris Hani, and Thabo Mbeki. He was incredibly popular. And it wasn't hard, it wasn't difficult to know and understand why. Comrades who've spoken already have referred to his outstanding contribution to the struggle. And those at that conference, so many of whom from MK, from the political underground and so on, knows, saw in Comrade John in exile after he had left the country after 1976. He'd already been in prison. He'd already carried out underground work at home, which led to that imprisonment. And he entered Swaziland, where for 4 years he worked in the most dangerous conditions, giving leadership to the underground there, to MK comrades, to comrades who were reconstructing the political underground at home, comrades like Ivan Pillay and others in Swaziland, Judson Kuzwayo, etc. I remember his dear wife, who stood by him through thick and thin, and of course Ilva, during that dangerous period, the news of his son's brutal killing in Botswana hit us all so hard. Comrade John was prepared to face all dangers, all difficulties. He would never give in. And as a leader of that underground structure, as was the case when later he worked from Maputo and then Lusaka, he always listened so carefully to the youngsters like Ivan Pillay and Sue Radkin and Sunny Singh and others. Judson Kuzwayo, a little younger than him, myself. He listened to what we had to say, and he was never arrogant. He never laid down the line. He thought so carefully of what was said, and his wisdom always shone through with his humility and with his concern for our lives. Gonda Perez from Cape Town reminded me the other day, she was in Lusaka with us when we were there with the political military command, of which Comrade John was one of the leaders, that Comrade John would berate us when we drove around in Lusaka with a car full of passengers. And he would say to us, comrades, don't fill up the car with so many people. You might have an accident and too many will die or get injured. There might be an attack and all of you will be wiped out. He was so concerned for our lives and our safety. And when I was jumping over the fence from Maputo into Swaziland and back, he would drop me at the fence because he could drive from both places for a while. And I hurt my leg very badly. I continued with that work and I would hobble across the border. One day, coming from Manzini to pick me up in Maputo, to drive me to the fence, he presented me with a walking stick. He said, Comrade Ronnie, you'd better use this, it'll help you. It epitomizes the concern, that kindness that he had for all of us. Comrade Chair, I don't want to extend my time, it's running out. But with the Cuban ambassador here, I want us to recall John's internationalism, how proud he was of being ambassador to Cuba and the lessons he learned and imparted from that wonderful country, who commemorates Fidel's birthday tomorrow. And we join with the Cubans, as Comrade John would, in commemoration. My final point is about Comrade John's mentor, who recruited him into the party, into SACTU, into the trade unions, into the ANC in the early 1950s. And he so looked up to Comrade Flagg for that man's humility, modesty, and hard work. And he held that as the standard for all who are in this glorious movement, who must fight for a better South Africa, who must counter corruption in all extents. Now, Comrade John, the last point, Comrade Director.
I know it's difficult to stop if it is a comrade that you actually lived with closely. Unfortunately, Comrade Khumalo, I have to really proceed to the other speaker due to time, and we thank you very much for all those memories. I will proceed, comrades, and I'll call Comrade Sebata Khomo, comrade from the Sebata Khomo Sekhukhune Rural Revolt, that is Comrade Dubatsi Lucas Tlhakudi. Comrade Tlhakudi.
Nkadimeng Shabalapa, Nkadimeng. Le mokgatlo ka mo ke a o tsamisa ke nna Mtubatse Tlhakudi. Mokgatlo Nkadimeng ke mo tseba go tloga ka 1957 ga re le kwa Johannesburg ga go thoma lekgotla la Fetakgomo. Gomme ra ba le ena e be e le mothusi wa rena ka mmuso wa Mabuo ga o re latelela a re gapeletsa boipuso. Gomme go fitlha ka 1958 ke ne le Nkadimeng ga Kgosi Seboko moramosi a swara le re ba le ena. Gomme a re ruta maano gore ka tšea e fetsela gore mogadi a boa kwa Transkei. Go fitlhela Nkadimeng lekgotla le fetsa le tswalela gomme le le ena. Gore Nkadimeng tle a re bale ka a re morwa go re bale ka kgotso. Monna wa bešo ba nna selalela ba Nkadimeng.
Thobela, Comrade Tlhakudi ra leboa ka kudu ke mantswe a botse ao. Thank you very much. We will proceed to the generation and contemporary that served on ANC-NEC, Comrade Josiah Jela.
The passing of John Nkadimeng represents yet another sad loss of an outstanding stalwart of our movement, a courageous and relentless fighter who for over 70 years dedicated his life to the cause of liberating our people from the shackles of oppression. John actively participated in all major campaigns from the 1950s, enduring arrests, detentions, trials, imprisonment, and exile. He took his trials and tribulations in his stride, undaunted by the inherent risks. He was at the forefront of the urban and rural sides of struggle and resistance. He became popularly known as the Lion of the North when, in 1954, he, together with another outstanding revolutionary, Flag Boshielo, founded the Sibata Komu Party in Skukuniland, which led not only to the Skukuniland revolt, but also inspired the resistance and mobilization of rural communities against oppressive laws beyond the borders of Skukuniland. I was struck by his enormous energy and enthusiasm during the famous 1957 Alexander Township bus boycott, where I first encountered his activism. He seemed to be unfazed by police harassment aimed at ending the boycott. I recall at his trial in 1964, when a sentence of 2-year imprisonment was handed down for his underground ANC activities. Comrade Joyce Mutaung, one of the unsung heroines of Alexander Township, horrified by the sentence, exclaimed from the court gallery, "Oh, John!" And John, waving his hand dismissively, responded, "Don't be silly, Joyce. 2 years only." What an indomitable spirit. This display of courage and resilience had become typical of him in a multitude of struggles and resistance in which he participated. In exile, as a member of the Political Military Council, John frequently visited countries bordering South Africa to meet activists from inside the country, and he would seem undeterred by the dangerous consequences of being kidnapped or assassinated by marauding apartheid agents. At meetings of the National Executive Committee, the Central Committee of the Communist Party, and the Political Military Council, we benefited a great deal from his contributions on many aspects of the struggle, especially on issues related to trade unions. I vividly remember John and Ray Simons, another veteran unionist, being in their element at an extended meeting of the Communist Party Politburo in Brussels, to which party trade unions were invited to discuss how to reinforce the developing trade union movement in the country. It was also in recognition of his reservoir of knowledge that John was appointed a member of the Presidential Committee, which consisted of Alfred Nzo, Dan Klume, and Joe Slovo. This was a body of stalwarts who served as political advisors to President Oliver Tambo. His experience and leadership in the trade union movement invariably made him a valuable resource in the period leading to the formation of COSATU. Following the unbanning of the ANC and the SACP, his remarkable track record also led to his appointment as chairperson of the ANC Peace Committee, set up to end the violence in KZN, orchestrated by forces bent on derailing the transition to democracy. The passing of John has robbed our movement of a kind and humble servant of our people who served with distinction. John was the embodiment of the soul and life of the ANC, of its values of honesty, selflessness, and integrity. His charm, dedication, and commitment will be sorely missed. Our heart go out to his devoted wife and pillar of strength, Ma Cynthia, and the rest of the family. May his soul rest in peace. Hamba kahle John.
Thanks for the inspiring clip from Comrade Josiah Jelle. What a great testimony to a life well lived, to a patriot and revolutionary. Indeed, we feel as if we are in a Umkhabulo political school. Thank you, comrades, for sharing your experiences. Comrade Nkadimeng, like many of his generation, was an internationalist, as Secretary General in the international trade union movement. And after democracy, the next two messages reflects this richness. I will call on the Cuban ambassador to South Africa, His Excellency Comrade Rodolfo Versen, followed by a message from Comrade George Mabrikos, the Secretary General of the World Federation of Trade Unions. Those will be the comrades who will give us a message. We'll start first by Comrade, the Cuban ambassador to SA. Can you take the floor?
Thank you very much, Program Director. Can you listen to me well? So are you listening to me?
We can hear you.
Okay, excellent. Well, let me start by thanking for allowing me to this opportunity to convey a message on behalf of the people and government of Cuba in this memorial for the late Comrade Ambassador John Nkadimeng. He really played a very important role in the history of the special relations of friendship and cooperation between South Africa and Cuba. It is important to clarify that much remains to be learned about the Nkadimeng roles in the relations between our two countries, both during the secret military and political cooperation of Cuba with the anti-apartheid struggle and during his mandate as ambassador in Cuba. Because as you probably know, many documents of those years in the Cuban's archive are still classified. But one day, the full story will be written, and I can assure you that that day, our appreciation and recognition to Comrade Nkadimeng will be even greater when all his contributions are made public. Comrade was an important participant in Cuba's secret contacts with the ANC, SACP, trade unions, and MK that started in 1961. As a result of those contacts, many MK soldiers received military training, education, and other skills from Cuban military instructors in Angola. Also, as part of secret agreements, in some of which Comrade Nkadimeng participated personally, from 1985, MK troops were transported to Havana for specialized training. In his condition as trade union leader, Comrade Nkadimeng also played a key role in the strengthening of relations between the Cuban Workers' Federation, CTC, and the South African trade unions, part of the anti-apartheid forces. He went to Cuba many times. In his condition as General Secretary of SACTU, there was an important trip in 1990 in which Nkadimeng participated in the 16th Congress of the Cuban Workers' Federation. And he had extensive meetings with Cubans, trade unions, and our leaders that time. Comrade Nkadimeng also played an important role in the organization and celebration in Cuba in April of 1989 of the 7th Congress of the South African Communist Party. The Communist Party Congress secret outside South Africa. The Congress was organized in strict secrecy because the members of the party, including Comrade Nkadimeng, were acting on the underground. Let me tell you, everything was so secret about that Congress in Cuba that not even the president of the Soviet Union at that time and the secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev, was visiting Cuba on that same period. Even him was not aware of the celebration of that Congress in Cuba. As an ambassador, Conrad played a very important role. As you know, South Africa formally established diplomatic relations with Cuba on May 11, 1994, just one day after Mandela's inauguration. Cuban President Fidel Castro, which was a guest of honor on the inauguration ceremony, requested Nelson Mandela to send as an ambassador to Cuba a person of his total confidence. And that person was Comrade Nkadimeng. For Cubans, for us, that was a great choice because Comrade Nkadimeng was a very well-prepared cadre that combined a great experience as a leader of the ANC, of the South African Communist Party, and also a trade union leader. He had also demonstrated to be a man of principle, a discreet person, and a man of humility that knew how to fight without looking for fame or vain recognition. He assumed his position as ambassador in Cuba on 25th of October 1995. So he was the first ambassador of liberated South Africa in Cuba. For many years, Ambassador Nkadimeng was the main channel for the extensive consultations between Nelson Mandela and Fidel Castro because both leaders had full confidence on him. Fidel became a very close friend of Comrade Nkadimeng because Fidel quickly realized that more than a diplomat, Comrade Nkadimeng was a true revolutionary, a communist, and a real representative of the working class. Of course, Comrade Nkadimeng was the envy of many in the diplomatic corps in Havana because access to Fidel Castro was not easy at all for most of diplomats, but for Comrade Nkadimeng was very easy. Fidel always had open doors to see at any time our commander-in-chief and president. Here I have a picture of these two together. I have many pictures like that. Also, Ambassador Nkadimeng had a key role in initiating important cooperation agreements between South Africa and Cuba in many fields, including the important cooperation program on health, known by everybody today as Nelson Mandela Fidel Castro program, adopted in 1996. After concluding his diplomatic mission in Cuba, he continued working very hard, fully committed in support of the Cuban Revolution. He was the chairperson of the Friends of Cuba Society focused in the Gauteng province, from 2002 and 2005, and he played a very key role in the important South African campaign to release the Cuban flag. Let me conclude by reiterating our deep gratitude for Nkadimen's contribution to the special relations between Cuba and South Africa, our and let me conclude with a suggestion. It's not even a proposal, it's just a humble suggestion for your consideration. As you probably know, this year, 2020, around 700 new medical doctors formed in Cuba under the Mandela Fidel Health Cooperation waiting in South Africa. It will be the biggest graduation of doctors in the history of South Africa. My suggestion would be to consider naming that graduation of doctors trained in Cuba as the Comrade John Nkadimeng, as a deserved tribute to a stalwart, a real hero that started those cooperation agreements which are demonstrated today such great results for the benefit of the South African.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Comrade Besson. And we really thank you for acknowledging the hard work that Comrade John did in Cuba. Let's now allow Comrade George Mavrikos.
We say farewell with respect to Comrade John Nkadimeng, a heroic militant personality of the class struggles against colonialism, against capitalist exploitation. When Comrade John took over the position of the General Secretary of the heroic SACTU during the hard years of apartheid, we worked side by side with the World Federation of Trade Unions. He played a leading role both in SACTU and in WFTU. The course of SACTU and of WFTU was shoulder to shoulder. The life, action and struggles of Comrade John must be a positive example for the young trade unionists. It is worth for the youth to study, to know, to learn from the life and action of militants like John, like Eric Mtsali, like Moses Mabhida, and many more great leaders. They had a belief in the fight and in class struggle. They had belief in the leading role of the working class. They had belief in internationalism and international solidarity. They had belief in a socialist perspective. They hated capitalist barbarity and racism. They had the sense of offering and self-sacrifice. They put us above me. These principles, these values are the ones that make every militant strong. We are optimistic that the young trade unionists
Solidarity forever. Thank you to the excellencies and comrades. We must continue to support the campaign of the Cuban health workers to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for their solidarity and contribution to the fight against COVID-19. Comrades, our traditional leaders continue to play an important role, not only in the struggles against colonization and apartheid of the past, but up to today, as we build a better life for all the people. We will now listen to the message from the Nkadimeng Royal House, Honorable Comrade Makoko Nkadimeng.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Nkadimeng family, the veterans, ANC, Labor Movement, NEC. I greet you all protocols observed. Mokgapa o mogolo o wele, dithara ka moka tša lla mašorošoro. The great tree has fallen and left the birds in confusion. Nkadimeng community lost a leader. Limpopo province lost a leader. South Africa has lost a leader. The continent of Africa has lost a leader of integrity, a leader with principles, a leader with leadership qualities. Here we speak of a voice of the voiceless, a vociferous of corrupt practices, loud, vocal. Nkadimeng is one of those country, South Africa. Nkadimeng community, we are proud of his legacy. Every time an old man dies, it is as if a library is burnt down. We are losing references. Wisdom and experience of older people is a resource of wisdom to our young generation. Recognizing and treasuring the contribution of Kwana is essential to a long-term flourishing of our society, of our country, of our nation. Kwana Nkadimeng never surrendered during difficult times. The liberation struggle was in his blood. He fought tirelessly the apartheid government. He did what he was born to do for this country, South Africa. We as Nkadimeng community at Manganem village, we know this hero as one who would not lose touch with his roots. After unbanning of political parties, he came to Manganem village to be in touch with the Nkadimeng community. We celebrated his heroship. We expressed the happiness of his arrival from exile to Nkadimeng by naming a local after him, namely Kwana Community Center. The media seems to be biased by not showing any photo, video interviews about Nkadimeng. If you were looking on TV, you would hear presenters announcing his death, but not showing no photo or previous video which he was interviewed. This is a disappointing by media. We don't need to say we have a 30-minute cassette in which we interviewed him. about his political involvement, it is stored in the institution, which some of the things that made Nkadimeng not happy about the village, it was the state of our schools, as well as his wishes to have shopping malls around his village. Unfortunately, he left before he completed his wishes. Let the departed soul of Juana Ngwatu Nkadimeng rest in peace. I thank you.
Comrade Nkadimeng, for that message, and kindly pass our sincere condolences to the Nkadimeng Royal House and the families of revolutionaries pay a high price. They remain behind while their spouses are in prison or exile, having to keep the home fires burning, and often harassed by the police. We will now listen to an elder from the family, Ntate Philip Singani Nkadimeng, followed by the younger generation, the grandchildren, Lerato Nkadimeng, Maide Sekhwali, and Otsile Nkadimeng. Ntate Philip, you have the floor.
Tobe, Samatomo, Kinyago, Lefa Spices. Seo le Sanjor le Tsibor, Repolelo, Bolelo, Hobagadi Julia Bay, Tinyaga Spices. Qual spices segui le fasona, que sa spedi, que le fa spices sa spedi. Regi toma polelo yak, ka spices sa spedi. Ki glore kwedia bomme realele bo. Le re hlageji ki se se re hlageji le khono. Klakir, Regi Shejiki Tatuluga ka polelo yaspedi, Kimuka, Kitekir, Regi le Shaul Shade. Kirete Mukhalajuala, Kinyagumereta. Kinyagumereta, Sereto Sagago Kimwatu. Yemwatu. Ugorisitse setšhaba sa gešo sa mangane le Mashite mo a belegetsweng gona. Ba bantši ga ba tsere o belegetswe Mashite ba fele ba re o belegetswe Manganeng. Ga a belegelwa Mashite o belegetswe Manganeng, Gra Mashite a ba thoma sekolo mo ba reng ke Modiketsi. Modiketsi a se Manganeng ke mo a thomileng sekolo a ruta ke mme ya belega go nna. Go tloga moo ke ge a ya ka Manganeng ge papagwe a šitša a hlokofetše a yo dula ka Manganeng. Ke ka moo batho ba bantši ba mo tsebang ka gore o tswa Manganeng fela kwa Mashite. A ke tlogele tšeo di fetile. Tla ke le botseng ma comrade, rena ba ka moga Nkadimeng re tloge re bone bohlokwa jo bogolo jwa Ntate Nkadimeng jwale ka ge le gore o re fepile le ge a ba tshwenya ke makgowa fela a ba re fepa go fitlhela re ba baka. Nna ona jwale ke ne le 60 years ke le in Alexander. Ke tlisitse ke ena mo Alexander. Fela ke ile ga ke tsena mo Alexander a mpotša gore mo re leng gona re ne le mokgatlo wa rena wa ANC. Jwale o santse gore le wena o tsebe gore o ye mong wa batho ba ANC le khono. ka ke joina ANC ke joinne ke sa le e monyane gona mo 70 something ga ba dio spell jale ke rata go leboga batho ba boletseng mo kamkana ga bona ba bolela ka mokgo a bereketsego African National Congress ka ona se gantši batho ba bolela ka tsela le di-alliance tša African National Congress. Ke rata go leboga gape le modimo ka gore ke re modimo ke mogolo re sa jo fele re bolela ka modimo ka gore modimo ke mogolo ke moka le yena re mo leboge le kgono ge re tlo molaela ka gore le kgona re molaela mo ga e felon o ya go bagabo jale ge a ya gagabo re re go yena re re robala ngwana Mahlabati ke a bona le thomo e kwa kamka ba mo tsebang kamka ba boletseng mo kamka ga ba tsebe ga e le wa ngwana Mahlabati ke Leponu ke Leswatsi le kgone ke gona le go thomo tseba gore mokgala jwe ke Leswatsi re bang ngwana Mahlabati jale ke be ke rata gore ke re ge a sepela ke mo sepetse ka tša gabo a ke re mo bereketse lefase ke rena ba re lokologile le ge re se la lokologa ka mokgwa mohuta o a ke re go ne le go lokologa ka nnete re lokologile fela a ra lokologa ka nnete ka gore ge re lebeletse re sepela mo rena bao.
Thank you very much. Sorry there, Ntate Philip, you froze. And we apologize because we were listening to you very intently for a very important message that you were giving about our unity and the love of the ANC. And it's a pity that you froze up. But I'd like to call Lerato Nkadimeng to please. Lerato? We seem to be having a connection problem. Trying to sort it out. What do we do? Okay, Lerato. This is so terrible. Hey, hey? No, they're all together. Maidi Sehwale? Are we okay? Oh.
For us, who largely knew him only as our granddad here at home in Johannesburg, we saw him set an example of complete warmth, a commitment to justice for the oppressed of our country, an example of humility and empathy. And I'd like to share a poem from the collection Malibongwe, edited by Sonomo Lefe, entitled Gone Forever, written by Nkadimeng, in dedication to our grandfather. He who made the sun shine upon the oppressed is gone, and it is forever in the flesh. He who uttered those brave words into thirsty ears is gone, and it is forever into earth. He who is leading us down to the valley of freedom, this knight in shining armor, this natural phenomenon, this monster, death, has taken him from our parched eyes, not our hearts. He is gone, and it is forever. Brave, he was amongst the bravest, this gem that sparked in the hands of this nation. But now he is gone, and it is forever from our eyes. Let us all, clenched fist in clenched fist, therefore for a moment, bouquet his coffin now, with revolutionary songs for new moments forever. In our collective loss of Ntate Mogolo, I see just how deeply the connections made and nurtured by him and Gogo, their peers in our family, go, and that in our grief we can still commiserate an incredible and wonderful life and celebrate his memory. And I'm deeply, deeply appreciative of that. Robana Kakucho, Papa, you are so dearly missed.
That was beautiful. Maidi Sehwale.
I want to start off the speech by mentioning that I'll be giving the speech in the perspective of a grandchild, one of 10 grandchildren. I've been fortunate enough to know my grandfather for as long as I did, considering that today is my 32nd birthday. And on this day, in 1988, Lusaka, Zambia, that's when I met my grandfather. Equally, my brother's children, Khomulemo and Sinkye, have shared the pleasure of knowing who was to them their great-grandfather. So we have indeed been blessed. As a grandchild, I've always been in awe of the presence of my grandfather, particularly when it comes to his presence as a family man and a liberation stalwart. I've always felt I've been born into royalty by the mere fact that I've seen countless moments where complete strangers would both praise and thank my grandfather on his pursuits for the liberation of his family and his broader family of fellow South Africans. Words like comrade, patriot, leader, father, unionist, liberation hero, this understanding gives a perspective of the understanding that a good man looks after his family, a better man can bring into his fold extended family and friends, but a great man considers those he doesn't even know, like the millions of other people in his country, as his family too. What has been front of mind for me since the passing of my grandfather are the constants that have made our relationship special. He reminded me of who I am, where my name comes from, what makes a good man, and where we come from as a family. Where we should be headed as a country and a people. These conversations were not only the lessons of my grandfather to his grandson, but blessings which will forever be etched in my mind as we continue his legacy and our understanding of who we are as the Nkadimeng family. My message to Papa, wherever you are, I know that you know that even if we search the entire world, we could never find a grandfather more kind or more caring, which is why I know that you will always be remembered with loving thoughts for as long as there are those who knew you. As a family, we are the ones who knew you. My message to my grandmother, Mani, we watched him slowly fade away, and although we loved him, we could not unfortunately make him stay. However, what is undeniable is your unwavering love for Papa. You were the rock in his life, and I know that he loved you dearly. Seeing the love between you and Papa and understanding how long you have been together and what you both have been through is nothing short of remarkable and a prime example of the holy matrimony of marriage, having understood your vows that have made you to hold for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish till death do you part according to God's holy law. I have no better example than the one you've taught me by your lived experience, and for that, we are blessed. To my aunts and uncles, Uncle Mudise, my mother Veronica, Uncle David, Auntie Heidi and Aunt Shirley, and Uncle Calvin, it couldn't have been easy for you sharing your father with the rest of the country, but our country is in a better place, and we thank you for your sacrifice too. I've always admired how united you have always been as siblings, and this I'm sure will continue to make Papa happy. To my brothers and sisters and cousins, Johnny, Musima, Mahulu, Mabatu, Innocent, Lebu, Tumi, Lerato, Lutile, I'm sure Papa would always want you to remember your family totem as a lion in the north. And as a family or a pride of lions, we must champion the legacy of what he's created as we continue on. Words alone are not conciliation for the loss of our grandfather, but we are now grateful that he lived a long and fruitful life. This alone gives me purpose to continue and will forever encourage me to continue. Thank you, Papa, for the life that you have shared with us.
Thank you very much. Lerato, that was Maide, that was beautiful as well. Could please Otsile Nkadimeng to her grandfather?
I understand that time is of the essence, so I will say my speech. It is never an easy speech to give on such a sad occasion, more especially when trying to express in words a man that you love so much, a man that you love so much, a grandfather, a teacher, and a mentor, using words that you do not even know exist. We as the next generation of Nkadimengs, our love, want to express all that this man meant to us. My grandfather, our grandfather, John Nkadimeng, to us represents the essence of duty to one's country, countrymen and women. It is a sense of playing your part, doing everything you can to paint the bigger picture that has been inculcated into the souls and the very fiber of us as the grandchildren. These are the values that this great mentor and grandfather have brought to us and to the forefront of what we now are, grandchildren. But personally, our grandfather was a very happy man. The memories I will hold personally of my grandfather are of warm occasions, bright smiles, louder and bigger than life laughters, and often, if you were at the right time, you'd catch him singing a melody, rocking the house into laughter, joy, and euphoria. Oh, how we shall miss this great soul. In this speech, I found myself talking to my cousins and asking them of what Papa meant to us. And we've all come to the same conclusion, that it was a privilege and a blessing to have him in our lives. That we shall have no other grandfather in the world, and that the fact that the good Lord blessed us with him is a privilege to which we should not take for granted. It is with great admiration that we take the lessons from Papa's life into what we do. The lessons of service, the lessons of morality, the values of thinking of the others and not of yourself, of commitment, of always being there for one another, and of unity as a family, as he always taught our parents. In essence, as the grandchildren, we have borne witness to one of the greatest leaders of our time. He will never come again, and his lights will never be seen. So therefore, we must take this as the opportunity, not just to see, to talk about the man, but to act as he would have wanted us to. The lessons of life, the limitless dedication and commitment to his family, to his friends, to his comrades, and to the movement, and to this country. We must continue to grow John Nkadimeng's legacy and not let this be the end. Long live John Nkadimeng. Long live. Thank you.
We'd really like to thank all the beautiful that had been said, and would to the times, and that Nkadimeng has delivered to have such an amazing family. Thank you very much, Ntate Nkadimeng, the elder and the lovely children. We will now receive the tribute from Comrade Zingiswa Losi, and we will also get some messages from the SACP that will be contributed towards Comrade Nkadimeng. Of course, like the generation he belonged to, was active in many organizations, but in particular as a trained unionist and a communist. Comrade COSATU President, I will really call you and request that the floor is yours. Unmute, you are muted. Please. Comrade Zingiswa, over to you. Please ensure that you have
Comrade Zingiswa, can you hear?
We can't hear. Unmute.
Move on. So frustrating. Guys.
Comrade Zingiswa, can you hear us? Okay, maybe in the meantime, what I will do, I will just go through the SACP statement. The Secretary of African Communist Party, Comrade Blade Nzimande, is not well. So in the light that he won't be speaking, I'll go through the statement. In brief, it goes this way. The South African Communist Party conveys its message of sincere condolences to the family of Comrade John Nkadimeng, to the working class and our national liberation and progressive trade union movement for the great loss encountered with the death of Comrade John Nkadimeng. South Africa has been deprived a selfless hero and will be poorer without Comrade John Nkadimeng and his valuable contribution. Our heartfelt condolences also go to the people of South Africa as a whole. In memory of the fine revolutionary, the SACP calls on the working class and the progressive trade union movement to unite and fight corruption to the finish, this corruption. It is through maximum unity and revolutionary that the working class will advance successful struggles to overcome the chronic crisis that the COVID-19 pandemic is deepening, the high levels of inequality, unemployment, poverty, and unequal development. It is through maximum unity again and revolutionary discipline, the working class will uproot racism and patriarchy and bring gender-based violence to an end, which is troubling our society. The success of our country's democratic transition also lies in victory, including COVID pioneers. The working class must triumph. This will be the best way to secure and deepen the state. Comrade Nkadimeng served as a member of the SACP interim leadership that spearheaded the establishment of the party structures following our hard-won unbanning in 1990. Before then, he served as a member of the South African Communist Party Central Committee when the party operated in exile and on the underground front. Comrade Nkadimeng was a trade unionist of note. He fought for workers' rights and universal emancipation. He Council of the Non-European Trade Union in the former Transvaal, now Gauteng, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and Northwest provinces. During that period, in 1950, he became a member of the South African Congress of the Trade Union, SACTU leadership. SACTU formed part of the Congress Alliance that organized the Congress of the People in 1955. The SACP is active on the underground front and openly through its undisclosed members and leaders in the Congress contribute. In the years leading up to the Congress of the People, Comrade Nkadimeng took in the 1952 Defiance Campaign. A year later, the Congress of the People adopted the Freedom Charter. He and 155 other stalwarts of the South African liberation struggle regardless of the harassment by the apartheid regime, including the arrest that he faced, Comrade Nkadimeng continued with the struggle to overcome the apartheid regime. Comrade Flag Bushielo, a communist stalwart, member and commander of Umkhonto weSizwe, who motivated Comrade John Nkadimeng to join the ANC in 1950, disappeared in 1972 on his way to South Africa from Zambia. These details of Comrade Bushielo's disappearance are still unknown and require a thorough investigation in honor of Ntate Nkadimeng, his great friend and comrade. We cannot leave it untouched. The stalwarts of our struggle for racial emancipation were constantly targeted and harassed by the apartheid regime. In 1964, John Nkadimeng experienced one of his numerous arrests. He was sentenced to imprisonment and released in 1966. With orders and restrictions imposed on him, he finally left the country in 1976 after the heroic 16th June youth uprising against apartheid. It's difficult to say John Nkadimeng, and Ntate Nkadimeng ascended to the responsibility of SACTU's General Secretary in 19 that led to the formation of COSATU. Throughout his activism, he labored selfless for the unity of the organized workers and for the unionization of the organized workers. Comrade Nkadimeng was appointed in 1995 and served and served as South Africa's first ambassador to Cuba after our 1994 democratic breakthrough, where he was close contact with the president of Cuba, Comrade Fidel Castro. At its first 11th National Congress held in 2002, the SACP conferred upon Ntate Nkadimeng, an internationalist of note, outstanding service to the Communist Party and the working class. In 2018, the government conferred the prominent leader the Order of Luthuli in gold for the dedication his entire adult life to the struggle for liberation, workers' rights, and to the formation of the United Democratic Front of Trade Unions. The ANC bestowed the highest honor of Isitwalande Siaparankwe to the veteran of the South African struggle in 2019. Long live the spirit of Comrade Nkadimeng, rest in peace. With these words, comrades, I will proceed with the program, and I would like I would like to check first with Comrade Zingiswa if all is well and good, noting that she should be muted. I would move over to Comrade Zingiswa Lucy.
Thank you very much, Comrade Joyce. I hope I am audible now. Comrade Joyce?
We can hear you now.
All right. Thank you very much, leadership. Greetings again to the program directors, the leadership of the Alliance, the leagues of the African National Congress, in particular the Nkadimeng family and the South Africans who are mourning with us today. As a federation today, we are saddened yet again by the passing of another revolutionary in Comrade Ntate Nkadimeng, a father who defined what a focal approach to our struggle in his communist, in his workerist identity, and his alignment to the community struggles within our movement. A leader who stayed true to his convictions and never betrayed the revolution. A committed revolutionary whose life is now a written history that will unfold in generations to come. The life of a struggle warrior that runs well over 9 decades has produced an organic intellectual of proportional recognition in the philosophical definition of struggle morality. Ntate Nkadimeng fits the definition of a true cadre made of high moral fabric, which has run out in the is to replicate the fabric of the cadre of his caliber. Death indeed robbed us of that special fiber of moral consciousness in our political pursuit. History, comrades, is the only mirror from which we can reflect on the high qualities of a cadre that he remains to be. If you were to allow me to borrow from what Marx penned down in 1852, when he addressed the meeting, and I quote when he said, "Men make their own history, but they do not make it as they please. They do not make it under self-selected circumstances, but under circumstances existing already, given and transmitted from the past. The tradition of all dead generations weighs like a nightmare on the brains of the living. And just as they seem to be occupied with revolutionizing themselves and things, creating something that did not exist before, precisely in such epochs of revolutionary crisis, they anxiously conjure up the spirits of the past to their service," close quote. Now, indeed, the political terrain and the struggle epoch of Ntate Nkadimeng and his peers travailed, produced and his peers that they traveled produced the astute character of a leader he became. They conquered political difficulties of their time without delineating the collective. Political crisis of that time, which was imposed by slavery, made them strong, and they easily dealt with factional tendencies that could impose themselves on the unity of the alliance, even when the movement and all political formations were banned. Now, the dynamic leadership of Ntate Nkadimeng enabled him to traverse, attaining the communist stature in his pursuit to liberate the proletariat. The working class was always at the center of all his operations, as he was instrumental in the formation of Workers' Federation when he took part in the transition from a banned SACTU to FOSATU, which later culminated into a giant federation that is called COSATU today. Indeed, we are proud today to be beneficiaries of the selfless work that Ntate Nkadimeng, Ntate Elijah Bahai, and others who architectured a militant workers' home. We indeed, as a federation, owe you, Ntate Nkadimeng, to ensure that COSATU lives on to fulfill its primary mission of fighting worker struggles while intervening in community struggles. Now, comrades, today we confront with vigor the struggles for economic emancipation, and we can borrow from the bravery of Ntate Nkadimeng to assist us maneuver these uncertain and shrewd realities of neoliberal capital. Just recently, comrades, this capital type, some of them applied for the UIF TERS relief funding during this COVID pandemic. We have for this money, received it, and yet workers are still waiting even today. Ntate Nkadimeng, we need your tenacious spirit to help us rally and expose these thieves. But we must also report that some from us suffer from the greedy syndrome, wherein they keep eating monies meant to alleviate the impact of COVID-19 towards the poor, and some to buy PPEs. Must report that frontline workers are dying every day due to the lack of protective equipment, and yet the greedy are lining their pockets. This is what will shame your legacy. The era in which you lived, Ntate, shaped your thoughts and informed your intellectual interventions, which did not have tendencies of stealing from your very own. Ntate Nkadimeng, we promise that COSATU will never keep quiet, that we shall expose all those who vilify your name and the clean record of your leadership. We will do everything in our power to rigorously shake the foundations of corruption until it crumbles down. We are now planning to unroll massive mass actions towards ensuring accountability and clean governance like you taught us. We indeed find solace in the fact that you and your peers did it when rude apartheid conditions were more difficult than we have our liberation today. We know that our factional tendencies are our greatest enemy, but we are determined to soldier on, for we are COSATU. Umzamo omhle uzamile, ugqatso ulufezile, phumla ngoxolo khehla. Long live the spirit of Ntate John Nkadimeng. Thank you very much, program directors.
Long live.
Thank you, comrades, for those reflections. and tributes to this revolutionary of the entire alliance and the people. We will now receive apology delivered by the national chairperson of the African National Congress, himself a former trade unionist who of Comrade Ntate Nkadimeng. That's Comrade Gwede Mantashe. This will be followed by the reading of the obituary by the grandson, Johnny Nkadimeng. Comrade National Chairperson,
program directors, all three of you, Nkadimeng family, leadership of the Alliance, the ANC, Communist Party, COSATU, employees of the ANC in various roles in government, all people who took time to be in this memorial service. I'm here sent by the ANC to pass our deepest condolences to the Nkadimeng family and all the relatives. Isitolandwe John Juan Nkadimeng was indeed a real model for many of young activists. As a young rural and trade union activist, one of my role models was John Nkadimeng, the General Secretary of SAC. He had once active and leading all their life. He proved that rural and poor background was never a disadvantage. It is the environment you grow.
oh my word.
Bataung, Wamupong, royalty in Sikukuni, and realized that royalty meant nothing if people are not free. Instead, he chose to use the deep human values derived from his upbringing, which included sharing little that was there. That means now this value ensured that JK would never be part of unbridled greed that is now engulfed our country and our movement. As a migrant worker, JK joined hands with his comrades from the north, like Elias Mtswaledi and Flatbush Yellow, and many others, formed Sibatahumu, an organization that led struggles against apartheid and livestock grab. That looks as a very small contribution. It was quite important because it was about livelihoods of people, and therefore they took a resist the grabbing of the livelihood of their people. In the SACTU conference in 1959, JK was together with Graham Rodi, Elias Mampuru, and Uriah Malika assigned a responsibility of organizing farm workers in the Transvaal, joining the Lion of the East, Gers Bande, in this difficult task. In the formation of SACTU in 1955, he was elected to the 19-member NEC and assigned the responsibility of a national organizer. Now, as a former national organizer myself, I know that role of a national organizer is not sitting in the office about field work, talking to people, linking up with people, and that task suited JK into 3 regions to organize. Steel workers in the main. He joined Comrade Sijake, the first president of the Veterans League, William Mkwai in the Eastern Cape, Achiko Sbako, and Ben. All of those are veterans that are known to us, whose contribution is not questionable. This is J.K. Nkadimeng, the trade unionist. I'm also giving the names of his fellow comrades to remind us of the people you know, so that you can see that the struggle was not abstract, but a reality with fighters who link generations. Some of us were narrow and shallow, always fight over this issue. What is the role of trade unions? What is the role of trade unions? Many even reduce trade union members to be only late Johnny Kama, who joined the ANC in 1990, and actually eradicate all that contribution of trade unions in freedom. You know, one time I was reminding few of the people that actually it was the struggles internally here where we're beating the Boers in 1987, where there was the Great Mine Workers Strike, the OK Bazaar Strike, the talk to the ANC. And people who do not understand the 4 pillars of the revolution do not have the linkage of these struggles, because
yes, there's still another person for you to, there's still another to, there's still a future to be.
demerged in exile.
I mean, it's a
They came in time working for unity. He rejected the notion of trade union being apolitical. This is a temptation that is even today. Revisit our trade unions that they must be apolitical. If they distance themselves from the ANC, they'll be better off. And we have a duty to demystify this myth. Trade unions must take the experience in the shop floor to the communities where they reside. We must equally explain that the SACP must resist the temptation to break ranks with the ANC. It cannot be a solution to challenges facing our movement. The reality facing our movement is explained by Mark Robert in his book, Man, the Slave and Master. I'm quoting, "The hostile forces of nature have been largely overcome, but the new menace has arisen in the form of man's inhumanity to man, a force that has exacted more victims than hostility of nature. The question therefore rising, man has mastered so many anachronistic his own social conduct of man. We resolve the questions facing and within our movement. Sometimes what is tempting is to expel as many as we can, or and develop correct prescription. Pandemic. In my you know, sometimes we make the ANC helpless by ourselves, ANC members and leaders, define it as a factory of corruption, instead of going out and explain the work the government of the ANC is doing, and then ring-fence instances of corruption and deal with them decisively and mercilessly. Now, having said that, I listened to 1 year President Ramaphosa, a liar, because he said he will give unemployed people 350 rand a month for a period. Because this young man didn't get the money, he said he's a liar. Nobody got this money. We are not going out and explain that 4.4 million people in South Africa received the payment. But it is the ANC members who continue to repeat that the money has disappeared. This is what I call self-destruction. Now, self-destruction is, I can assure you that the corruption is an enemy that must be fought, but it cannot be allowed to engulf the ANC and collapse it. The NEC has directed the officials to actually access the wisdom of veterans. I hope, Comrade JJ, all of you, Comrade Ron, refuse to engage the officials when they come to you and look for wisdom that can help us resolve contradictions and problems in the ANC. That is where we are. Problems in the ANC must be resolved. Let me conclude by giving the ANC tribute to JK. Thank you for being selfless. Thank you for being selfless, JK. Thank you for caring. A lecture for another day is the central role you played in the formation of COSATU. That in itself is a lecture for a day in itself. That day will explain the significance of the word Congress in both to COSATU, because it is not an accident that it is Southern is the school for socialism. It's another lecture that we need. And therefore, we have a lot of work to do in terms of political. Don't use the word socialism once and talking. We are almost ashamed of it, totally ashamed of it. And historically, trade unions were a school for socialism. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank the Nkadimeng family for giving us JK. I want to thank the veterans who worked with him, who helped us continue. And that responsibility has not disappeared. And we must move with necessary speed, because this generation is beginning to leave us one by one. One day we'll wake up and find that there is no veteran to go to. It is therefore a matter of time to go and link up with them now. They're still available. They're ready to help us and help us. JK, rest in peace. Actually, you have left us at an age that shows that you are blessed. And though we can't stop mourning, but it is worth celebrating a life well lived. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Comrade National Chair. We're now going to call on Comrade Johnny Nkadimeng, who's the son, to read the obituary for us.
We are almost ashamed of it.
Greetings to all of you. Oh, okay. Greetings to all of you. I'll be reading the obituary. Ntate Nkadimeng. Ambassador John Nkadimeng, affectionately known as Mokomani for some and JK for others, was born on the 12th of June, 19 Mashite Manganing, Sekhukhune district of Limpopo province. He was the third born child of Mahudu and Masite Mahungwatu Nkadimeng, and one of the four siblings who have all predeceased him. He was born to the Batauba Mopong royalty. Mashite Manganing is a barren and arid area nestled in the mountains occupied by the Bapedi since around 1600. The area has a long history of resistance and struggle by our people using Marumu, Dilepe, Mulamu, and Peku against mounted men who use guns, treachery, and cannons. This is the place where the young John Nkadimeng was born. He grew up like other youngsters in the village, sheep-herding goats, and later herded cattle. His family lived between Morake, Hove, and the main village household near Mantwe, where his father kept cattle. It was when they stayed at Morake that he appreciated the value of land. He schooled and completed his primary education in the Mudikite Methodist Church Center School at Mudiketi village near Maile Mapitsane village. He completed standard 6 in 1944. After he finished his schooling, he moved to Johannesburg in 1945 to live with his uncle, who was working in Germiston, and later found employment in a hat factory around Jeepistown, during which he lived in Jeep's hostel. This is where he met people from his hometown, such as Mamune, Pala, Chatane, Pokwane, and Mangane. He came to Johannesburg to start working and immediately started studying part-time to complete his junior certificate. During the day, he worked in the hat factory in Dromfontein. He joined the African National Congress in 1950 through his close friend, Morutle Flag Bushielo. Flag Bushielo worked for the Guardian newspaper, which he delivered daily to Ntate Nkadimeng. They would read, analyze, discuss politically a matter that became valuable in his subsequent political life. From a young age, starting in his teens to his adulthood, the epicenter of his life was the struggle for freedom and emancipation of Black people from subjugation of apartheid. His contribution to the fight for freedom traverses what previously known as Transvaal province, with his political origins as Mokomani Wabatu Nkadimeng, Batau Nkadimeng as royal kinsman, and one of the founding members of the Sebatakhomu rural movement. Sebatakhomu is a battle cry commonly used by Bapedi to describe the danger approaching hand Sebata, a predator, mostly a lion, a beast, a ferocious foe, and Homu, cattle, which is a treasured commodity amongst the rural Africans to this day, which is loosely translated as a lion among the cattle. John Nkadimeng, Lucas Hapula, Saul Mampuru, Urea Malika, Morawane Shakudi, Urea Ratsuma, Wanatsu Mane Skukune, Mpashe Nkadimeng, Mohara Medi Skukune, Pirima Mashiku, Mancha Tladi, and Holani Nkadimeng, and many others, founded in 1958 a migrant worker organization from Skukunaland called Sebatakhomu. The formation coincided with other uprisings in Pondoland, Fitzhoek, and Zeerust. John Nkadimeng, Flag Bushilo, Elias Mutsualedi, John Phala, Elias Muritsele, Muharamedi Skukune, Prince Arthur Tulare, Mukebi Malika, Ram Pilani Mampuru were the many leaders of Sebatakhomu, which was one of the significant forerunners and backbone of Mkhonto weSizwe. They served in a committee, Makudu Tamaka. Their motto was Feta Khomu, Usware Mutu, Mo Feta Khomu ki Muriri wa Hlokho. He was at the forefront of the Roaring 50s in marches, pickets, boycotts, demonstrations, defiance, azikwela, and strikes. In 1951, he joined the Communist Party of South Africa. In 1952, the SACP was formed to substitute the banned Communist Party of South Africa. He was later elected to the Central Committee and later to the Politburo until 2007. In 1952, he was one of the organizers of the Defiance Campaign, and in 1955, he was the organizer of the Congress of the People gathering which adopted the Freedom Charter in Kliptown. In 1955, he was once again elected to the ANC National Executive Committee at an elective conference in Queenstown. He was also a founder member of SACTU and served in its inaugural Central Executive Committee. He was amongst the 156 ANC Executive Committee members who were arrested and tried in the Marathon treason trial alongside Nelson Mandela, Walter Sisulu, Oliver Tambo, Chief Albert Lutuli in 1956. Upon his release, he was placed under banning orders which lasted till he left the country in 1976. John Nkadimeng and Evelyn Dipakeng Moeketsi were in a customary marriage from 1958 and signed officially in 1970. He left South Africa and was exiled in 1976 to Swaziland and lived there until 1981. He was joined by his wife, his younger children, and a grandchild in 1979. However, he moved to Mozambique in 1981 and on to Zambia in 1982, where he lived till his return to South Africa in 1991, yes. In 1978, he was co-opted into the NEC of the ANC in exile from having been a leader of the ANC underground in Johannesburg, which included Masisulu and newly released Robben Island prisoners Comrade Joe Tabi, Robert Manye, and Martin Ramohadi. In 1983, he was then elected as General Secretary of SACTU. It was in this task that he played a huge role of building one united, progressive trade union federation in South Africa. He worked closely with leaders of individual unions in these unity talks that led to the emergence of COSATU in December of 1985. At the Cabo Conference in 1985, he was appointed to be the 6th person presidential committee advising President Oliver Tambo. As the consequences of the heightened intensity of the struggle from all fronts, the ANC and SACP were unbanned, and former President Nelson Mandela was released in 1990, and Ntate Nkadimeng returned home and immediately joined the work of rebuilding ANC's presence on the ground and through mobilization. He was appointed by the ANC to serve as the ANC's head of ANC IFP Peace Committee. He crisscrossed the PVW and KwaZulu in efforts to pacify and stop the violence between warring parties. On the 29th of July, 1990, he was announced as part of SA Interim Group to re-establish SACP presence in the country on the ground. He also worked very hard with the Northern Transvaal to build ANC structures and campaign for a victory in 94 elections, and alongside veterans Elias Mutwaledi, Nelson Diali, John Pala, Lawrence Pokonuku, Ntate Chulu, and Mutubi Pari. Okay. Sorry. That. Just the last.
Thank you very much to Comrade Johnny Nkadimeng. Certainly, as we come to the end of this rich memorial service, with clearly speakers that are people who understand the history of our, not only of our country, but of our tripartite alliance, one can see that many people didn't speak from any script. And that is very, very impressive, speaking from the heart because they know the values of the ANC. Comrade Ledwaba, when you spoke about the founding of COSATU, and many of us were very young people at the time, the slogans of the time were, freedom or death, victory is certain. We never look back. We always believed that one day we would be free, but perhaps if we did not make it to that end journey, it didn't matter as long as we participated in the journey. Today, it is our responsibility to recommit ourselves to the renewal of our movement, the ANC, which Comrade Nkadimeng served all his life. The values that people spoke about here are the values that we need to bring back to life by actually working and organizing in a manner that will make sure that people understand that when you join the ANC, it is a commitment for life. And that commitment does not necessarily translate into wealth or into a position. It translates into you being an agent for change, an engine for change. And that is really what we need to do, to transform our country and achieve what we call the national democratic revolution, which is the transformation of our society from what we inherited to a non-racial, democratic, united, and non-sexist South Africa. But we must also build the trade union movement, and that we heard. And when people like Comrade Ronnie Caswell spoke so passionately about the kindness of Comrade John Nkadimeng, I believe that one of the things we've lost, as the national chairperson says, is that thing of kindness. We are wanting to break a movement that is not ours to break. And therefore, what we must commit ourselves to and promise is that we won't allow it to be broken. And whatever threatens it is an enemy to the movement that we are here speaking about today. Whether it is corruption, factionalism, people who need fame, or whatever else they need, the only thing that really matters is that the ANC must be rebuilt from the ground up. Our branches must be strong. The alliance must be strong. COSATU must be rebuilt. And the South African Communist Party must be built so that it begins to have that ideological center as the vanguard that it should be. Socialism is the future, comrades, and it's going to come if we make it happen. So Comrade Nkadimeng was a man that we cannot ever forget. Humility, honesty, patience, hard work, integrity, and discipline must become internalized by all of us. On behalf of the ANC and its officials, a warm thank you to the Nkadimeng family who shared their husband, father, and grandfather and uncle with us. Thank you to all the speakers for your thoughtful reflections. And thank you to all participants on the virtual platform. Long live the spirit of Isitwalandwe John Nkadimeng. Long live. My boy.
Wait.
Comrades, wash your hands, wear your mask at all times, and keep a social distance. We still need to keep you safe. Good night and thank you.
Basebenzi masangane, kuthala sisebenzela maphulo.